This Soonerscoop.com video is streaming in crystal clear 4K resolution on YouTube thanks to Enjoy Vision in Oklahoma City. Don't miss a moment on or off the field. Make every day a highlight with LASIK at Enjoy Vision. Enjoy Vision. This is where Sooner Scoop LASIK.
Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosovich, George Stoya here from the Soonerscoop.com studios. A Friday, April 11th, and another edition of Around the Quarter, taking your questions from the Crimson Quarter on the message board with Soonerscoop.com, the biggest fan site in the country. How about that? That's a lie. But biggest Oklahoma online site. You can join for $1. Get your questions answered here on the Around the Corner.
Lots of good information on there, too. You've got big recruiting weekend coming up. Josh, I know, put up a lot of notes on that.
Sooner Scoop today.
Transfer portal intel. I put up a story this morning with a lot of details on some potential targets, positions that they're going to go after. So now is a great time to sign up. The portal opens on Wednesday, and OU's already busy in it. I'm sure we'll get into
college football is rather busy right now. We're going to get to that here in a second. But real quick, you did write about it. And by the way, the Crimson Combine coming up on Saturday. We'll be over at the stadium. You will have instant reaction, that kind of stuff. Plenty of coverage coming on Saturday afternoon from what is typically the spring game weekend. Obviously a little bit different this year with the format and everything that goes into it. I think that we're all kind of wondering what this is going to look like on Saturday, but you wrote about it this morning, and we're going to get to the Nico stuff here in a little bit over in Knoxville, but Oklahoma is obviously going to be extremely active here in the transfer portal spring period that does open on Wednesday. Wide receiver, tight end are knowns, running backs are known. Just anything to add before we get into the spring game weekend? Yeah,
interior offensive line. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about that. They're looking for somebody that can, be kind of a hybrid center guard type player. And the perfect candidate is Stanford's Jake McKylou. He was on campus last week. He's also visited UCLA, and he was at North Carolina today. He posted a photo with Bill Belichick.
Going to see our good friend Bill, huh?
So we'll see. I think there's a couple other schools he may visit. He's supposed to make an announcement on April 15th. So
that's Tuesday.
Yep. That's coming up tax day. Make sure you get your taxes done. But other than that, cornerback, I think is obviously a position. Wouldn't be shocked if you saw, if they wanted to add a depth piece at defensive tackle, maybe linebacker. It's a difference, and I wrote this in the story. There's a difference between guys, positions that they want to go and get a starter and positions they want to go and get a depth piece.
And it's a little bit different, and I say different, it's just there's a lot of unknown. You don't know what's going to actually be out there right now.
Yeah, and so that's what's kind of going to be interesting over this next week, who's getting in the portal from other schools and who's exiting from Oklahoma, because OU is going to have a few departures. We don't know who yet, but I'm sure that there will be a few guys, and then all of a sudden maybe you have to go in a different direction and change your focus. Wide receiver probably wasn't a top priority a week ago. Now all of a sudden it is with Javonnie Gibson's injury. So it'll be interesting to see how Jim Nagy navigates it.
It's hard to forecast just everything that's going to go on, but I know from what we, I guess, know, it doesn't seem like they're going to have any major departures out of Oklahoma. No. What I would say is a major departure, like a starter or something like that. No. It's not going to be a situation like our good friends over in Knoxville, Tennessee right now.
I don't believe so. I don't think John Mateer is begging for more money right now or demanding more money. So I don't think that's going to happen. Again, you never know with the portal.
Sure.
There could always be a surprise. I'm sure there will be for Oklahoma, but maybe not, obviously not as big as what's going on at Tennessee.
All right, very good. Let's get into this because there are a lot of questions, a lot of controversy, I guess you could say, here over the last 48 hours, starting with our good buddy Pete Dacos. He puts out the report on Thursday afternoon, I believe.
Yep.
Or it might have been even Thursday morning, talking about Nico. And, we've butchered his last name before. We're not even going to try it again, and we might not have to learn it.
The Tennessee starting quarterback.
Football. We're talking about the Tennessee starting quarterback. Basically, the report that was out there is that he had gone back to Tennessee, and they were negotiating some type of new NIL deal, right?
Yeah, and it seems like that has gone awry. I don't know what direction it's going to trend to. I know VolQuest has been pretty on top of it for On 3, but this is something that we haven't really seen in college football yet, where you have players holding out for a better contract, and it comes at the time of the portal opening. So there's a chance he could just jump in the portal and go somewhere else.
When you say hold out, he wasn't at practice today.
Correct.
In the spring, for their spring ball, they have the I think it's the orange-white game coming up on Saturday. It's a little bit of an interesting territory because, as you said, this is the first time that this has happened.
The only other thing that's kind of happened that's somewhat similar is the UNLV quarterback last year during the season leaving the team and saying he was going to go somewhere else. But I don't think we've seen something like this play out publicly before, which is going to be fascinating to see. I think that Nico and his team have kind of mishandled this because now I think Tennessee's saying, all right, fine, we're not going to pay you. We don't think you're worth what you're demanding. We'll just go out and get a different quarterback. And now you've also alienated yourself from the fan base who are very upset about the way that he's handled this.
A very passionate fan base, I would say.
Oh, yeah. And then also, how about your teammates?
Sure.
You know, I'm sure that some of them aren't too happy. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Everybody has an opinion on it. And even though it's a Tennessee football subject, there's plenty of those types of comments there on the Crimson Quarter from Spray Tan. I think we're going to see our first major holdout this year or next. There's going to be a star at a major program who's going to hold up his team for more money at the end of August. It's just the next logical step in this process, which, you know, it is, and it's another one of those dirty kind of, I think, things that is out there just in the college athletics world, and maybe even more specifically on the football side of it, where there are a lot of eyeballs. This is what everybody's been kind of worried about. This next step of, okay, this is what this is. Now it's going to get nasty.
Well, and that's why they need to have these guys sign contracts, right? Like you avoid some of this in the NFL. Now you have guys that sit out for, you know, renegotiated contracts all the time in the NFL, but you also have guys that are under contract and you know, that's why they sign long-term deals and all of those things with different bonuses. And I think that has to be the next step for college football is, one, making these guys employees and having them sign 2, 3, 4-year contracts so that this type of thing doesn't happen.
Sure.
And, you know, and it also just, you know, feels weird, the timing of it, to do it right before the portal.
Right before spring game weekend, too,
I mean,
for it to leak out like this. And I'm sure that Tennessee didn't want this out there.
Oh, definitely not. And then, you know, some of the rumors out there about that they were shopping his name around to other schools, and those schools were like, hey, Tennessee, do you know that your quarterback's doing this?
I think the one thing, Dan, we've talked about this on the Unofficial 40, as well as I think we've talked about it with Josh here on some of the practice reports or the recruiting portal reports, which will start next week here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel. Just in terms of, it's really, really hard to forecast everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's extremely hard to forecast. I mean, because like no one was talking about Nico being in the portal. If he were to go in the portal, he's going to have a lot of suitors, and maybe somebody that will pay him.
And the one thing that everybody kind of doesn't, we know about it and we've talked about it, but all of these schools' collectives and the people that are in charge of their money, they're talking amongst each other. So a situation like this doesn't arise.
Exactly, and that's what, and man, it's still going to be so hard though when you talk about revenue sharing and that going through, and you know, I think we'll have a conclusion here soon. But also this idea of regulating NIL and fair market value and how they're going to do that. It's going to be really tough to, you know, put rules in place so that these type of things don't happen. And the players aren't going to like that because they feel like they could get more money in a system like right now where you can say, hey, well, I want this amount of money, and somebody will pay it, right? Like some school will come along, you know, USC, would USC do that? They might
be amazing,
you know, something like that. Like I wouldn't be shocked. So, I don't know. It's the wild, wild west right now. And, you know, I think Nico and his team are trying to take advantage of that.
I think when we think back to the first press conference that we had with Jim Nagy, and he was getting those text messages of you don't know what you're signing up for, basically, and entering the college.
This is what they're talking
space.
about.
That's exactly what he's talking about. This is going to be a big month for Jim Nagy. Obviously, Oklahoma is going to be extremely active in the portal. This is kind of like when you're putting together that front office. This is the moment that you're thinking of in his first endeavor into a portal to go identify guys that can come in and help from day one. Let's go to the Jim Nagy portion of this segment or this program here as we start with a setup from the great Josh McCuistion, one of our own. He makes his debut here on the Around the Corner. As of late last night, a decision hasn't been finalized, but Duncanville, Texas edge Kevin Ford Jr. tells me he may be in Norman tomorrow. Speaking of the Crimson Combine on Saturday, That would make for an interesting pairing, as he and Jake Krull, the defensive end out of IMG, would be on campus at the same time. The two know each other, and we'll have a bit more on that later. It's not set in stone, but obviously would be big to have Oklahoma's top two defensive ends on campus on the same day. And obviously that will set up for the commentary that comes.
Yeah, and it should be noted that Kevin Ford is actually at Ohio State today.
Okay.
So there you go.
Well, maybe... Damn.
But well, that just tells you like how tough it is to predict some of these things. And there's a lot of schools that are sometimes paying I'm not saying Ohio State does this, but there's sometimes schools that will pay players to come and visit now.
Yeah, sure.
And that's part of their NIL deals and all of those things. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting, especially to see how I'm going to be interested tomorrow, Eddie, to see how Jim Nagy interacts with possible recruits and stuff like that, because we'll see them all out there on the field, I'm sure.
This will be
Saturday.
his first real, I guess, second after the junior day, when he was hired. But this would be like the second, I would say probably biggest day for the recruiting side of things.
Yeah, and he talked about it on the Oklahoma Breakdown, just kind of the differences between, he's used to evaluating college prospects versus now he's going out and evaluating a ton of high school prospects as well, and saying, recruiting is still the lifeblood of a program and they need to focus on that. So I'm very curious to see how him and his staff kind of approach the high school recruiting ranks.
Who else was on that show?
Do what?
Nothing.
Okay.
It was a good show. That's all I'm saying. I was on it. All right, let's continue on the Jim Nagy discourse. Soonerbread 918 chimes in. Nagy may be the reason we don't land them. He may see Division II 3-year guy who is already proven for less money. Let's hope he doesn't turn us into Colorado or Ole Miss. 20 to 25 portal additions every year. My immediate reaction is, my God, some of you are very affected.
Yeah. The Jim Nagy's been very open about they don't want to do that. Like, they don't want to become Ole Miss there's certain years you might have to do that. Like this year, they're probably going to end up taking close to 20 guys. And that's because when you add in the winter portal and now the spring portal, and that's because, look, Jim Nagy's coming in. He wants to change what the roster looks like. He feels like they need to add some stuff. But the eventual idea is to only take, maybe 10 to 15 guys a year or less. And you're seeing that across college football. There's a lot of programs, Ohio State is one of them, that they'll go out and they'll spend in the portal, but only on a few guys. Last year they went out and they got Judkins, right? They went out and got a Will Howard at quarterback. It was a plug and play type of deal. That's what I think you're going to see in the spring portal. Jim Nagy, he's talked about it. He's like, yeah, there's a couple spots we might want to add some depth if we can. But he's going out to get starters, guys that can come in and plug and play day one, not trying to add 15 guys in the portal every year, because you're not going to have the success you want there. At least it hasn't been proven yet that you can.
And especially on the offensive line, defensive line, where we've talked about time and time again, if you're going to build this thing from the inside out, you start in the trenches.
And that's why you kind of feel good about where Oklahoma is right now in terms of both of those units. You've got a lot of homegrown guys now in your program on both sides in the trenches. And I think that's really good for Oklahoma moving forward.
All right, very good. A couple more responses to get through. The great Jordan Wallace, who will be active in the baseball thread tonight, I'm sure. I thought him and the family were coming to Norman this weekend. You may legitimately be the only person unhappy with the Nagy hire. You find a lot of the in contempt persons, I guess we'll say, on the Crimson Corner, as well as Sturdy Suitor, who says, might need to sit this one out, champ. And sometimes we get a little friendly banter between the members there on the Crimson Corner.
Yeah, look, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but I have to side with those two guys that pushed back a little bit, because it is like, why are you complaining right now? Let's also just see what he does. Like, I feel like there's been all these, like, and even us, like, oh, it's a great hire on paper. Yeah, it's great. Sure. Let's see what he does. This is a huge test these next couple of weeks of what he's going to do in the portal and finding maybe some hidden gems. And I know he's done an incredible job of getting enough money to be aggressive in the portal. So I think that they're in a really good spot to go out and get some good players. And, I trust his evaluations, but let's see how it plays out.
No doubt. Jim Nagy, as well as Taylor Redd here over the next couple of weeks, are going to be very active for Oklahoma in going through the portal. George, you are the subject of the next slide that we have. Mike Honcho. Fellow Scoopers, I'm asking for signatures to stop George Stoya from writing any more feature segments on players and coaches. Javonnie Gibson is just another addition to the long list of feature articles that have forsaken a player. You have cursed this program with your articles, and I cannot allow them to go on any longer. Kerry Murdoch, get your boy in line. I'm sorry, George. I think you do a great job, but I need to take a preseason frustration out on someone.
That's fair. Take it out on me. I'll take it. But, Kerry has told me I have to continue to write them. So if you want to be mad at somebody.
They're good stories.
Yeah. Kerry's put a gun to my head and said, you will not get a paycheck if you don't keep writing good stories.
We can't say that, Kerry. We cannot say that. If you would have heard what we heard in our ear, let's just say it would have been bleeped on the unofficial 40, and I'm usually the one that's saying that. But yeah, I mean, it sucks. I do think it's like a ultimate ironic coincidence that
it sucks. I mean, well, and part of it is,
we're not going to stop covering the team, though.
I write a lot of stories on a lot of players, and the odds of some of those guys getting hurt are high. Like that's going to happen every once in a while, and you look back at this last year too. It just seemed like there was a lot of guys that were good players that ended up getting injured, and Javonnie's was that one. It really sucked because it's like I had just written that story a couple weeks ago, I think, and just awesome, remarkable journey for him, and for him to get hurt in a freak accident, and it just sucks. But like Kerry just said in my ear, Reagan Beers, she survived. I've written actually quite a few features that the players have turned out to be pretty good or just fine, but the bad ones.
Everybody remembers the ones that get injured, though. And we'll have a little bit more on Javonnie Gibson here in a second. All right, let's continue on. But before we do that, George, you want to do the deed here? As Big Game Football Factory, our good friends over at Big Game Football Factory, have the official Oklahoma football. If you come down to Norman tomorrow to the Crimson Combine, you'll see it, I guess, flying through the air. It's kind of weird that the wind's not going to be as bad as it normally is for the spring whatever weekend. But it's the 2025 official OU Jordan Fly Elite Football. The first time ever that the Jordan brand has been on Oklahoma's football, as you see there on the screen in front of you. And if you want to get yours today, all you got to do is go to biggameusa.com/Sooners, biggameusa.com/Sooners. Thank you to our good friends over at Big Game Football Factory. We continue on the journey that is around the corner here as we take all of your questions from the Crimson Corner and put them up to the test here. 584 Sooner. Apparently, a Dallas-based company has 3 living direwolf pups that they've genetically engineered. They say they're planning on bringing back the woolly mammoth and the Tasmanian tiger. I always heard about the Tasmanian devil. Not the Tasmanian tiger. I'm not familiar. Freaking wild. It is wild to see that they have tried to bring back, or I guess they have brought back the dire wolf.
Something to do with like helping climate change, right? Or I know that's what the woolly mammoth.
I don't know. You're always kind of big into that kind of stuff.
I just saw some videos of it, and it's been on the news everywhere about these dire wolves. But it's like the next step of getting the woolly mammoth, which is supposed to help with climate change and stuff. So
I have no idea what you're talking about, Kerry. He's talking about Game of Thrones stuff, and it just goes completely over my head.
We really need to get him where people can hear him.
Yes,
it's a constant
like
in
a
our ears,
producer,
no one else can hear.
Producer
Yes.
suite,
yeah,
producer suite, audio and video coming soon. All right, congratulations to the direwolf. Hopefully, we see him.
Maybe they'll be at the zoo, OKC Zoo. That'd be awesome.
To bring a direwolf in.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That wouldn't be bad. Oklahoma has a wolf of their own that walks around as a athletic administrator. If you know, you know. All right, we continue on. Let's get into the Javonnie Gibson stuff. Obviously, not good news. He injured his leg at the, the beginning of this week? Feels like Monday. It was last week. But Mac Brown for OU, did I miss it? All these posts seem to allude that he'll miss the season. Has that become official, George?
No, it hasn't become official. Hopefully, and I would assume Brent Venables will talk either to us or in some fashion on Saturday, whether it's to Toby and Teddy on the broadcast, but I would assume he'll give some sort of update. It does sound like he had surgery this week. Okay. And I do believe it's a broken fibula.
And that was always kind of the big question, right? Yeah. Like, was he going to need to have surgery? Because if he didn't need to have surgery, maybe he was going to be able to get on the field a little bit earlier.
You think? I don't know. Broken bones are so different, and I don't know if there's any ligament damage. That's where, like, if there's some ligaments, then it's going to be really tough for him next year to get on the field. Probably by October
just
or November.
Devastating injury.
Yeah, and even then, I just don't know enough. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to try and guess when he'd be back. But I do think he'll probably miss some time. But again, until we hear it from Brent Venables and this coaching staff, I really just don't know what the answer is.
Hopefully we hear something on that here in the next 24 hours. And as George said, we'll be at the Crimson Combine on Saturday and hopefully able to talk to Brent Venables and get a little bit more, a better idea of just of what he thinks about the spring, and then obviously start working our way into the injuries.
Right.
Even maybe some updates on somebody like a Heath Ozida or a Logan Howland, just to see how they're doing. Jaden Gibson, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, all those guys. We haven't heard about any of them. And, Zion Raggins, I know he had surgery at the beginning of spring camp too. So, what's the situation?
Who are the wide receivers that are healthy right now? Shout out Eli Thomas, I guess.
Elijah Thomas.
I'm going to call him Eli.
And Deion Burks is back. Yeah. He's healthy.
He did. So. They did put out a social media post, catching a touchdown. Put him in bubble wrap until August. How about that? If you've been sleeping or living under a rock, and some of you I feel like sometimes do, Oklahoma basketball's had a kind of a positive momentum here with Porter Moser's side of things. Obviously, Jenny Baranchek and crew getting Aaliyah Chavez has been a fantastic ride for them, but Tay Davis as well as Nigel Pack have committed to Oklahoma. OU Chuck, they're both better prospects to replace Fears and more than I thought we would get. Davis may very well be better than Jalen, and although Pack won't be a lottery pick like Fears, he is a great college guard and much better outside shooter than Fears. Thought today was going great until I read about the wide receiver injuries. What the AF? I'm sure that you can put two and two together. I told Bob we hit on it a little bit yesterday during the Stickball report, just in terms of the prospect of what these guys are. But Tay Davis and Nigel Pack, two excellent additions to Oklahoma.
It feels like I don't think that either one are necessarily better than Jalen Moore and Jeremiah Fears as individual players, but I feel like as a roster, Oklahoma's getting better. And you bring back a Dayton Forsythe, who you assume is going to take a big step. Mo Wagi, who finished the season strong.
He was incredible. I still can't believe the little run that he went on at the final 10 games of the season.
He was amazing. And then, you have Jadon Jones, Jeff Nwenko, it feels like, again, I don't know if Tay Davis is better than Jalen Moore. Sure. I think they're different players. Yeah. Nigel Pack is certainly not Jeremiah Fears, but he's
You're not going to find
player.
Anybody more athletic than Jalen Moore. I know that.
Exactly. But, I think as a team, top to bottom, you're starting to see this depth and, just all around talent that I think that this group can be pretty good. I know that Bob also said they want to add, maybe a couple more pieces of shooter, it sounds
Definitely
like.
want to find somebody that can be a knockdown type guy.
Yeah.
The Nigel Pack thing, I think that people kind of forget how good of a college basketball player this dude is.
And how much he cost. I mean, OU, there's been a lot of talk about OU's NIL fund for men's basketball.
Sure.
He cost a pretty penny from what I understand. And Porter Moser and them have done a good job of getting some money. I know Joe C. that's been an emphasis of trying to get Porter some more resources. So credit to them, and maybe they can finish this portal class strong.
Yeah, if nothing else, I think, and I told Bob this the other day, it feels like they're just kind of banking on some positive momentum from just simply making the NCAA tournament, being able to hear your name called on Selection Sunday.
With UConn. They were in that game.
Sure.
So.
Needed the opposite side of Dan Hurley.
Yeah.
They got a couple calls that way, and then obviously didn't get the calls against Florida in the round of 32. All right, let's sneak in a couple more questions here. Let's go linebacker. I'm a little surprised linebacker is in a position of need. We seem thin there. They must really like Nesta and even Heineke's progress. Daniels is the cheetah and backup will linebacker. He goes down and it impacts both positions. That is a position that we thought at the beginning of spring, maybe this is going to be a position of need. It's kind of maybe moved itself down, or is it about the same, you think?
Again, it's like what I said at the beginning of the show. You have positions that you want to go out and get a starter, like tight end. Mm-hmm. They want to go out into the portal and say, let's find a starting tight end. And then you have positions like linebacker where it's like, hey, if we can find a nice veteran linebacker to be a backup and a depth piece, let's do it. Let's spend some money and get one. But I think that the way that Taylor Heim has practiced this spring, the way Kendall Daniels has practiced, Sammy Omosigo pushing for maybe a starting job at Mike, they feel pretty confident in that group. And I know it's still kind of a thin group when you talk about experience, but you feel really good about Kobe and Kip and Kendall being your three guys up front, and then obviously Sammy, in a backup role possibly. Taylor Heim, again, somebody that they really like. And Owen Heineke, I've kind of joked on here about Owen Heineke because we're both Bishop Kelly guys, but The staff loves him, and he's an important special teams player, but they also like him at linebacker. And I'm not saying he's going to play a ton next year unless there's some big injuries, but they do like him. So, and James Nesta, I think, has come along well. I know he's splitting time with baseball right now, but and you have Marcus James coming in this summer, who I know they're very high on from Carl Albert. So again, if you can find maybe like a guy that's played a couple years somewhere and you can add him to the room for cheap, sure, but it's just not on the same level of priority as, say, tight end or wide receiver or something like that.
I'd also say to make sure that you watch The Family Business this week with Isaac Stoops as well as Joe Castiglione Jr. They had Danny Stutzman on and a great conversation about not just Danny's career, but somebody like a Samuel Omosigho, and then obviously that entire linebacking room. I think that Oklahoma fans will have a great enjoyment of watching that and kind of knowing what the future looks like at that position under Nate Dreiling.
Yeah, I think he was one of the...
and Wes Goodwin.
Yeah, one of the better interviews that the Family Business has had on. He talked a lot about this next year's team and just how good those guys can be.
We also featured Kendall Daniels on Thursday's practice report. I really enjoyed talking to him on Wednesday. So that was a lot of fun, actually. I think I'm pretty excited about see what Kendall Daniels can do. All right, let's end this with a fun one from the Crimson Corner. Karate Jesus. Compare each Scoop member to food and explain why Carrie Murdoch is a chili dog. Thank you. What food would you be, George?
I
love chili dogs as well. They need to pick it up across the street.
I feel like I don't know, like a burger or something.
A burger. Interesting. Explain.
Like a bacon burger. I don't know. Like I feel like I'm something that's good but not, super in shape or anything.
Interesting. I was gonna say a cheeseburger for myself, and I was gonna be particular about it. I was gonna say like at the garage, always solid, never great.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as like a hit. I love the garage, but it's always great.
Yeah.
Or always good.
What about Bob? Bob's a hot dog, right? Because he just loves hot dogs. I mean,
especially the free ones from the concession stands.
But he's a hot dog with like nothing on it.
Yeah, he raw dogs it.
Yeah, he does. He doesn't eat anything with it, I don't think.
The Bone Man, always known.
What about Josh? What do we?
George is a chicken tender.
That's right.
Saying.
That's probably better.
Josh,
than
I would go. He's like the Mbappe. I
was gonna say like a Philly cheesesteak or something.
Carrie says Porterhouse Philly cheesesteak for you.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a Philly cheesesteak.
Porterhouse is good.
Couple months when we go up to Philly.
I know, dude. That's going to be a fun trip.
I'm excited about it.
We've not talked a lot about that. That's going to be awesome.
Need to go up there on Thursday. We're planning everything right in front of you. This is how everything's done here at the Suitor Scoop offices on Campus Quarter. All right. Happy Friday. Everybody enjoy the spring game-ish weekend, whatever we're going to call it. Crimson Combine. It feels like spring game weekend, though.
Yeah, it does. And so I think it's going to be a bigger crowd than people. Like, there's some media talking about, they think maybe less than 10,000 people. I think it's going to be, I don't know, 20 to 30?
No offense to the Pride of Oklahoma. Love the band. I think there'd be 10,000 people just to watch the band play.
I think so.
Let alone watch the Oklahoma football team for the first time.
And with them announcing
it's
going to be kind of almost an open practice. Like, I don't know. I think people will be intrigued. And the weather's great. Baseball's in town.
Yeah.
Just parents' weekend. Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of people. If the traffic outside of the offices are on Campus Corner is any indication, I think it's going to be a busy weekend around here.
It'll be fun.
All right, we'll wrap everything up here on the SuitorScoop.com YouTube channel. I almost did it again on Saturday after the Crimson Combine. Obviously, hoping to hear from Brent Venables as well as John Mateer. Maybe even if we get lucky, we'll hear from Ben Arbuckle for the first time. That'd be amazing. For George Stoya, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We will talk to you next time here on the SuitorScoop.com YouTube channel.